Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, a podcast dedicated to offering a growth mindset platform for us entrepreneurs, where we discuss everything from business, mindset, to life in general. I'm your host, Catherine Polsinelli, a business organizing powerhouse, personal development strategist, and owner of Agent Services Plus, a company focused on helping entrepreneurs just like you build, grow, and be courageous in their business. I'm so excited to have you with us today, so grab a cup of coffee or your favorite beverage and get ready to have some amazing conversations and fantastic takeaways. Let's jump right in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I have with me the amazing Elle, which I'm so excited to introduce to you guys. So Elle, give us a little bit about you and what it is that you do.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Elle, and I do branding and social media strategy for female entrepreneurs mainly. I reference your birth chart actually to start making decisions about things like aesthetics and your brand messaging. But yeah, that's sort of like the very brief overview of what I do.
Which I absolutely love. And I really want to deep dive into branding and stuff, because I know you and I have had a lot of off-camera topics, but to me, it's been like very eye-opening, considering, you know, when you're in entrepreneurial spaces, everybody's like, oh, you need a brand, oh, you need this. And like, to me, it was like all of these things, right? Like the colors and the logo and whatever it is I could figure out, which is extremely overwhelming, especially for someone like me, who is not in the creative sense at all. So by your definition and what you do, what would you consider branding for someone?
So in my mind, and when I'm working with people, branding sort of has three different spheres. There's a verbal, a visual, and a kinesthetic sphere. And I always start with verbal, because if you think about it, like, we don't really think, even though someone might be visual, like we use words to describe what it is that we're seeing. So it's a lot easier to like reverse engineer what someone desires for their brand to look like when you start with their messaging.
Okay.
So in the verbal sphere of branding, you're going to have things like your content pillars. So like, what are the pieces of content that you're talking about? Keeping those things consistent. And it doesn't necessarily have to be always what it is you're selling, but kind of staying in like maybe 3 to 4 lanes of, you know, it's in your case, it might be like in real estate. Let's do like family and pets, and food, maybe. Like those could be like 3 things that like you're consistently posting about, so that people find your content to be consistent. And then there's also like, you know, they're the things that are important to you, that are relatable. So those content pillars are going to be also representative of your brand's values. And then also sort of choosing words and vocabulary that you're kind of constantly referencing, just to, again, it's like creating consistency. Like, what is the mood of the verbiage in the social media posts that you're making? Are you kind of meek and shy? Are you like bold and divisive? Are like, do you use curse words or do you not? Like, all of those are brand decisions, and they're decisions that shape who you are and how you are received by your audience. And so also like things like keywords, all of those are tools that you can use to start curating like a hashtag bank when you're, I mean, we're getting into like sort of more of like the everyday operations, but like being able to use your content pillars and your values to curate a hashtag bank, so that when you're posting on social media, you're getting discovered by the right people. I mean, you can see how this like becomes very sort of all encompassing, right?
Yeah.
And then when you have that kind of like verbal messaging down, then you can start to go into, well, what are the visuals that would represent that? What are the visuals that go with, a message flavor, if you will, that is like kind of like sassy and snarky? Like, how do you represent that visually? What are the colors that would go with that?
Oh, okay.
Right? So,
Yeah.
and then the same thing, not just for colors, but also for like the types of fonts, and then for the visual, we've got colors, your color palette, we've got your fonts,
Mm-hmm.
and logos. And by the way, like I think a perfectly fine logo is just something called a word mark logo, which is like your name or your business name in a script, in a font that you've chosen that is fashioned in a certain way. Like
Oh,
it
okay.
doesn't need to be like an image. Like it doesn't need to be some like drawn illustration.
Mm-hmm.
There is something in a complete brand kit called a favicon, or like an icon. If you're looking at the internet, tabs along the all along the top, you'll see like each little tab has its own little image that's like
Yeah.
a mini logo. Like that's where I think it would be important to have just like a little tiny, like, this is everything I am in one little stamp. But like beyond that, like a logo in particular is like, just write your name in a font that you like. um
It makes it so
and
much easier.
right, and like your name and a tagline. And so that's usually like two fonts, like a scripty font and like a not scripty font. Like, ta-da, you've got it, right? And so
Yeah.
you've got your verbal and you've got your visual, and then the kinesthetic portion that I am talking about is the experience. What is the brand experience? These are all, again, it's decisions that would be in alignment with your brand. How are you delivering the deliverables of the transaction, whatever your promises? I'm actually working with a realtor right now who, part of her deliverable is throwing the first housewarming party.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's part of her experience. That's her brand. And so what is if you have a list of email addresses, like what's the content? Like, are you just like saying, here are the most recent listings, or like what are you enticing people to do at every step of the, like, awareness to consideration to making a decision to actually delivering on the sale? Obviously, like if we're talking about houses or like whatever it is
Mhm.
that you're selling, um all of that is a brand experience. For someone who is in like a network marketing situation, like I know with Mary Kay, for instance, they can actually ship, like when you are checking out of Mary Kay, you can
Mhm.
opt to check out like with your representative.
Yeah.
And so instead of just getting everything mailed from like Mary Kay headquarters, I don't actually know what happens when I choose the other option, because I always go through my representative. And so she has like a nice box with tissue paper, and like she writes a note, and like all of that is a brand decision that is on brand for my Mary Kay rep.
Okay.
Some other Mary Kay rep might do something totally completely different.
Yeah.
And so all of that, like I talk about the kinesthesia of it, it's like like how am I moving through, how am I as the consumer moving through the experience of working with you? And so
Ooh,
that is what the brand is. It's from start to finish, from like the little tiny kernel in your head of like the first idea of business to like the experience of your client.
that's crazy. So to me, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, basically it's kind of like when I tell people in their business to create a niche and to take the things that you already do and love and use that as a way to grow your business, you're kind of looking at your brand the same way. Is what do you already do, like love, that you want to give to other people? Is that kind of how I'm?
Yeah, I mean, that would be probably in like the first sphere when you're talking about verbal
Mm-hmm.
communications. Um, you're talking about like, yes, these are our shared interests, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then also like the mood that the voice that you're speaking in is going to be attractive to a certain group of people and not attractive to hopefully also the right people. Because an effective brand is going to both attract and repel. I mean, one of the biggest mistakes that someone can make is being afraid to repel people.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. There's 7 billion people on the planet. You don't want all of them as a client.
Oh, so true. But a lot of people don't think about that. I do agree with that. People are afraid to repel. And I think that's interesting that, like you're saying, that you can use that within your brand to create that atmosphere of those that want to already come and see more about you and learn more about you, and to those that you already know off the rip or that you haven't met yet, right? That don't agree with it. Those are the ones that you probably aren't going to want to work with anyway. So why not allow your brand and what you're putting out there to kind of push them the opposite direction, so you don't get to that point to where you have to deal with them and then you have to either make the decision to continue and it's just awkward the whole time, or eventually have to say no because it's
Let me
just
just
not
refund you.
working. I,
Be hard to get your house.
I freaking love that. That makes so much sense. And I guess I've never had that explained before in like such a simplistic form. Like it's always been, you have to have a brand, you have to have a logo. And immediately when I think logo, right, the first thing that comes to mind is like, oh my God, I have to have something, has some type of picture or something somewhere that's going to catch people's attention. But I never really thought about creating it so that it's also connecting with the right people that I want in front of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, I got into it over the Book of Faces with someone who didn't appreciate my differing of opinions, but I pointed out she was on a rant about how like you don't need a brand in order to have a successful business, and I'm like, but you have one. And she's like, I've never paid for anything like this, that, or the other. How do I have a brand? And I looked at her socials, and it's like, okay, well, first of all, you're very consistent about what you talk about and how you talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And your the photos that you post are consistent. The 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 Facebook cover photos
Mm-hmm.
are stylized in a certain way with colors that just happen to match the colors that are currently in your hair. Like,
Oh,
you have a brand, sweetheart. Like, you are like, that is like, okay, maybe you don't even know the name of the font that you use on a regular basis, but like,
mm-hmm.
you know, that's you are the brand. And like the
Yeah.
more you step into accepting that, like, you know, however many agents work at like Remax versus Long and Foster, like people, I mean, I just sold a home. Like I didn't care where my agent, like who she was working with,
Yeah.
to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I want the experience with my agent.
Yeah.
That's what's important. So it's like, who are you and how are you going to take care of your people? And what's the experience that you give them? A really great example of a brand that, I don't think I'm lying when I say that they don't have a logo other than a wordmark logo. Are you familiar with Lush?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Canadian cosmetics company.
Mm-hmm.
They're all about like very natural, like supposedly everything's food grade. Like you could eat it if you were starving in a desert. I don't know.
They can't eat
But
makeup.
it's like,
Yeah.
when you walk past it in the mall, and this is a great example because this is something that my coach teaches as far as like the sales process, from like awareness to consideration to decision to delivery. So being a store, and you've got a storefront and you've got people that are like walking up and down the street. So Lush, you can smell them from like 3 or 4 doors down, right? I mean, it is like, and right off the bat, you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. My mother did not like Lush at all. It was too much, meanwhile, I'm like, oh my God, give it to me. I love Lush. And so like, it like literally just the scent of it will like draw you in or push you like I'm glad we have COVID masks. Like, let me keep walking. Right. And then you're pulled into the store, and like right off the bat, there's a sales associate saying, hi, welcome to Lush. Like, is there anything that you're looking for? Like, everyone's very knowledgeable. They're very like outgoing. Like it, like the sales team is a very, extrovert energy.
Okay.
A lot of times they will run, especially if it's around like peak shopping times, they'll be running demos on their bath bombs so that you can like see everything, it's magic. I love this brand. And so everything's very, very like light and bubbly and high energy, and that's the energy behind the brand. And like it's very graphic. It's a white font on a black background. Like that's their branding. Very and it like a handwritten kind of like hastily, you know what it looks like, right? And so it kind of goes like, that's a really great example of how the visuals will go with this like kind of homemade, like maybe I could make this at home if I really decided to go mad scientist on myself, but like I'm kind of glad that there's a whole company that does this already. And then when you have made the decision and you're buying the delivery of it, right? They always give you samples. And a lot of times it'll be a sample of something that if you were talking to one of their sales associates about like some kind of a problem or a challenge you were having with your skin or your hair or whatever, it'll usually be something that you talked about.
Makes total sense.
And then they also have branded, because a lot of their items are like package free items. The soaps, the massage bars, they have tins. They have branded tins that you can buy, obviously, so it's like reusable, but like to store the things that you've purchased.
Yeah.
And then like it ends up being that like you end up storing other things in their branded tins too, and it like just takes over your life. But I mean, that's a really great example of like awareness. What is that I smell, to consideration? Like, let's give you like this really fantastic experience while you're in the store.
Yeah.
Totally welcoming, extrovert energy, like everyone's best friends. Hey girl, what's up? Like that type of energy. And then like their delivery is very, also like, oh, here's a little extra gift. Like, thanks so much for buying our products. I mean, that's, like it or love it or hate it.
Yeah.
That's a very strong brand presence.
I mean, that makes total sense. I never thought about that either. And now that you say that, like I'm thinking about a couple of different brands in my head that I'm like, they don't have a logo. It's just their name. Like, I know that it's just their name. I've seen it. And I've never thought about that before. So if you were to give anyone like one piece of advice in the beginning to kind of really help them define what branding is for them, because I feel like when a lot of people say the word branding, kind of like what that lady said, I never paid for it, I didn't have anybody do something, right? We immediately go to having a picture, having that logo, paying someone to take care of it. What would you suggest to help someone just start that creative idea? Obviously, if you don't want to, you guys should totally call Elle, because she's fantastic at it. And it is a headache, I can tell you from experience. But what would you tell people just to kind of give them a way to kind of start popping ideas of what they would want their brand to stand for.
Start at the beginning with the words, with the messaging.
So you really need to understand yourself.
Yeah, journal a little bit on like, I mean, identifying your values, and then how do you want to be known? When someone drops your name, what do you want to come to mind?
Mm-hmm.
How do you want your clients to feel throughout the process of working with you?
Mm.
What's the atmosphere? You know, like Lush has a very specific atmosphere. So what is the atmosphere of your proverbial store once someone's in your environment? And then what are you giving to them? And when I say giving, I mean like the content that you're delivering is, I mean, it shouldn't just be like property value reports.
Yeah.
Like, why should I care to follow that stuff? How do you make that relatable? Why does it matter to you? How did you get into this business?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's starting at the beginning, and you're absolutely right. Like, I'm doing the work to understand yourself and why you're doing what you're doing. And then it's making a decision around what it is that you want to talk about and how you want to talk about those things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to share family life? There's no right answer. Actually, there's one right answer, and it's your answer.
Yeah.
Some people will advise against it, and some people say that it's totally necessary for forging like the know, like, trust factor, right? You have to show your human side. I mean, all of those things, there is no right answer. The only answer that is right is the one that's right for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a branding decision. What's in alignment with the brand? What's in alignment with how I want to show up on the infinite stage that is the interweb?
Yeah. I love that too, that like you said, there is no wrong answer, because I feel like we do get caught in that one tremendously, right? Or everyone is so worried, like, well, what are they going to think of if I put this on here? What is this person going to think of if I put this up there, right? Or what are they going to think if I do keep my family life private? Well, honestly, if those people are going to think weird, bad things about you, it goes back to what you were saying. It's probably not people you don't want to work with.
Right.
They're not in alignment with you or your business or what it is that you're trying to create as a whole. And I think people sorely forget that, is that it's okay to be you, whatever that looks like. I mean, I have a friend of mine that I know, he's been in the business for forever, and bless his heart, he is horrible at technology, but his business is insane with the amount of people, because he's just this great, bubbly, I will take care of you teddy bear person. And that's why people love him, right? But that's like you said, that's his brand. And
that's his brand.
About it, he doesn't have a brand, or like he doesn't have a logo and stuff like that, but his personality is his brand. And that's why people know, like, and trust him, and then eventually want to work with him.
Mm-hmm.
Makes total sense. So. Felt like I had my own epiphany.
There you go. I just hand them out.
I love that. But you say it in a way that it makes it seem so simplistic, when I feel like anytime that conversation comes up, we immediately complicate it.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, it gets complicated if you want to start with the visuals.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very, very hard. Like, if I were to say, if I were to ask Kat, like, how do you want your clients to feel when they come to your website, and you were to answer green, I want them to feel green. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like, so you understand that like starting with a color palette and a logo, you're missing some steps there. Like you have to get the messaging and the values and the purpose fleshed out before you can move into that stuff, because the visuals are what they're just the visual representation of the messaging.
That's like, yeah, I never thought about that because I did the same thing. I went directly to colors. When I first started trying to figure out what I wanted things to look like. That's what I started with, but that makes total sense. Do you
Because
feel
then
like
you're like, then you're stuck with like, well, I like these colors, and it's not, the conversation should be around, well, what are the visuals trying to accomplish? Not, this is what I like. I mean, sometimes those things overlap. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like painting the picture. You don't necessarily come up with the colors first. You come up with the concept of what you want to present, and then the colors kind of come into it. In some perspective. My husband may disagree with me because he paints and he may give me crap. I feel like he does that as well, right? Like he has this thing in his head and then he just puts it out there and then changes his colors or whatever he's doing, right? But it's the concept.
I mean, at least when you're like painting a portrait or a still life or something, you're usually sketching out the shapes before you start applying color. Usually,
unless we're talking about my husband, he does abstract, so he just has all kinds of.
I mean, that's a different. But even still, I mean, I would guess that there's a like a process of like plotting out the composition,
yeah,
before you start filling in the details.
Yeah.
There are not that many people. There was a friend of mine in college at Maryland Institute College of Art had this term called waterfalling it, where like literally like you could start like at the like the top right corner of the piece of paper and just draw everything with perfect detail and flesh out the whole composition without mapping it out first.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there are not that many people that can do that effectively and have it look the way that you want to.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just happens that way, but rarely is that the technique.
Nope. No, that's why I have to have people like you in my life, because we're not all meant to be creative. I think that's a huge thing. And I think a lot of people need to understand that. Like, if you know that is not your strong suit, please do not waste 5, 10, 15, 20 hours stressing yourself out over trying to come up with that. Like, please find someone, contact Elle, like get someone who knows what they're doing that can really bring your vision to life. I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's the whole reason why everybody is so different, is so we can help one another out. And I know that I am speaking from experience because I did that in the beginning, right? Like I just struggled trying to figure out my own crap. And it wasn't until I gave something to my sister who loves doing creative stuff. And I was like, hey, just like throw this together. This is kind of some things I'm thinking about and let me know what you think. And it came out 10 times better than I could have ever done it. Which ended up being my podcast cover. And I'm like, this is fantastic. But it takes that visual person to be able to bring that to life. So I love that there are people like you out there that can see things in that light.
Yep.
So tell me, if you could give us before we end, if you could give anyone any advice or even maybe a quote, something that you go by that helps you out or that can help them out in their business, what would that be?
Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the voice at the end of the day that says, I will try again tomorrow.
Ooh, that's a powerful one. I may have to write that one down. I like that. And that is so true for so many people. And I think we forget that because we always look for the loud pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
It's been my favorite quote for a decade. I don't know. I always come back to that one.
I love that. Well, Elle, I appreciate all of your amazing knowledge, and I hope you guys got some amazing things out of today. Where can they find you? How can they connect with you and get in your world?
I am at www.h-elizabeth.com, and then also you can find me on Instagram at any major social media platform. Tech Alchemy. Alchemy is spelled the Norwegian way, so it's ALKYMI. Tech Alchemy.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for all of your information. Like, I feel like I got some my own inspiration. I'm going to go back and look at some of these.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I love talking to you.
Thank you so much. And to everybody out there, I hope you guys got some amazing takeaways. Please make sure you reach out to her, especially if you're struggling with your brand. She has some amazing ideas. I know I have already taken some and implemented them in my business, thanks to her. And don't forget, do something positive at least once each day for somebody else. And I promise you, it will help bring joy into your life. So until next time, you guys have a fantastic day. Mwah. Hello again, and thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you absolutely loved what you heard, please be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review so we can keep the good stuff rolling. Got something you'd love to hear us discuss? Then be sure to message me on social media and let's work together to spread even more amazing content. And if you haven't yet connected with me on social media, be sure to follow along at Agent Services Plus. I'm so excited to connect with you on the next episode, and until next time, be sure to find things that help you learn, grow, and be inspired.